This is great. We are live. Angelique, I'm so happy.
Hello, everybody.
So we are going to be waiting approximately 5 minutes to let everybody be present. One. Secondly, if there is any questions, we are going to be using either the chat inside of Zoom, because there is part of the gang, of the cohort, that is joining us via Zoom directly, and the other part is going to be joining us directly through the YouTube streaming. Today is a great day, so we are going to leave them a couple of minutes to be ready. And finally, end of the day with something that is quite meaningful for organizations, right? It is about how do we get ready, in fact, to transform organizations, to design the workplace in a way that makes sense. What can we learn out of so many good either research? I have heard that there is so many pilots going around, countries getting involved. I read very recently, in preparation of this webinar, the research that is being done in Iceland. So there is it is a national drive to understand, in fact, what is the impact of reducing the number of days of work. And at the country level, that was quite impressive, this reading. So let's.
Well, oh, sorry to interrupt, but I just read a post. I didn't read the article, but I just saw my co-host from Hello Monday Club posted something about the UK starting a 6-month pilot with the 4-day work week. And he is from the UK, so he picked it up and he had all those questions already about the execution. So we are really excited to dive a little bit deeper in that as well, and in the research and the results from Iceland, and add that to our experience and ideas about the future of work, of course.
Angelique, so let's start by just to say how much I'm excited about this, because the way we met each other is a little bit with our common passion, which is how do we enhance the well-being at work? And that was our initial discussion. And even though we have different profiles or different angles to enhance and make that the workplace become something that is quite awesome, where people feel at ease, where people are at their mental best, there are the two angles that we have taken. Is one, from our side, my side is a little bit more into the learning processes, how to use brain processes in order to help people embrace this agility, embrace the change. How do we create mental processes and the mindset in order to want to change and be at our best? And from your side is about the design of the organization. And it is crazy that at the end, these two elements are put together in order to drive change, which is something that is in the mouth of everybody, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I am an organizational sociologist, so I see organizations as part of structures that we are part of, and they affect us. So there's obviously a counter effect, but we are collectively part of structures that have an effect on us, on our well-being, but also on the way we actually, so how we shape society in the broader sense. So the organizational structures that we operate in are really determining a lot in our lives and our society, and it's super interesting. And if you look at how you could change that and what ripple effect that could have on like well-being, but also family life, just taking care of elderly people, it can go really, really far. And so excited that we are active in this field, in this time where we are about to change and where we have the opportunity to change. And that's great. It's just amazing.
They call us the rebels, in fact, Angelique. We are people who are really trying to drive this change in organizations. But I think that you have been a little bit humble in the way you describe yourself. So from my perspective, so you are a person who is responsible or who is engaged and advocate for the future of work. You are a strategist helping organizations define how they want people to work. You are an organization sociologist. You have been the founder of Hello Monday Club, which is kind of a think tank where ideas, creative innovation is happening. I have heard very good things about your mastermind group of like pick and choose, how do you call it, HR innovators. So where you are in fact changing the way people work, and you are not scared to go and try and see what are the results. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Angelique Slob, indeed founder of Hello Monday Club. I am from the Netherlands, and I used to work as an interim HR manager. And in that time, we had in the Netherlands the new way of working, which was all about more flexibility, working where you want, when you want, hot desks in offices, and a little bit where a lot of companies and other places in the world are moving to right now. So it's very interesting. I can, use that experience that we have for my country. But at the same time, I was active as an HR director, HR manager, and I was like, well, I think we miss a very important, like critical element in this whole movement of the new way of working. And that is moving to results-driven and autonomous workforces. And a lot of critics were saying, well, it is about managers are not able to let go of control. And people were picking up that narrative, and people were just using that as kind of fact and also as a reason not to change. And I challenged that. So I said, well, I'm not sure if it's true. And if it's true, we need to know why, because then we can find a solution for that. And that question was the starting point of my journey that has led me to where I am today and where I'm still on, obviously. So I went to university. I studied organizational sociology, alternative concepts. And after that, I started my own consulting, and I started to do it fully remote. So I also left my country. So I took my laptop. I went on a one-way cruise across the Atlantic. Never came back. I came back, but not, to my old life. And that is 7 years ago. And I met so many people quitting their jobs, saying, I'm traveling and I'm starting my own business because my company didn't give me that flexibility. And all I saw was a talent drain. I was like, we are just, why it's still so hard for companies to give this flexibility and create autonomy and meet the employees' needs. And we need to change that. So that has become the base, my academic research and that development that I noticed. That has become the base of my work at Hello Monday Club. In the core, it is consultancy, but in this new age with COVID, where we see that there's global transformation going on, we are building more like an ecosystem, or if you want to call it a boutique conference online, where we bring people together and give them access to high quality goods, good level of resources. And one of the things we do indeed is the mastermind for HR leaders, forward thinking people who really say, okay, we want to be on this opportunity to change the way we work and also therefore the way we live. And it's really important that we take these people, we call them future of work leaders, HR innovators, as you wish, but the people, they're not afraid to be challenged. And to also reflect on themselves and their role. And yeah, it's an amazing bunch of people. And I'm really happy that I'm like, today I live in Brazil, in Salvador de Bahia. So for me, it's like, it's still in the morning, while a lot of people here watching is probably all evening. And yeah, my life has changed. And it's just great to be able to share this with other people, get people involved, bring everything I've learned back to the corporate world. And yeah. Thank you so much for having me and giving me also this opportunity to connect to the people in your region.
Angelique, so you are really a person who walks the talk. So you have decided to move away from the corporate to recreate and redesign how you want to lead your life. So let's do that also for organizations. Now, a little bit about myself. My name is Ivan Palomino. I grew up in a country that is very similar to your country, Angelique. Switzerland is very similar in terms of approach, even mentality. There is a lot of good jokes that we have back in Switzerland, but I come from the French side, not the Swiss German side. The Swiss German side has a language that is more similar to yours, by the way. I'm an engineer, so I love data. I cannot be just intuitive about results. I got passionate about understanding how the brain works. I dug a lot in a lot of literature, and I complemented my education with neuroscience, behavioral science. By the way, behavioral science is something that I have used on my 18 years of corporate life, because part of the 18 years were in marketing, and you use behavioral science to nudge people to buy stuff that they don't need, right? So in our case, when we co-founded this startup called Bessern, a German word that means to improve, when we co-founded it with Elena, which is she might be in the crowd today. The main idea is, how do we create a way of learning stuff that affects behaviors and do better cultures? So we needed to dig a lot in terms of in psychology, positive psychology, neuroscience, to understand how the brain processes change. And change is difficult. You mentioned just before this idea of controlling your people is such a difficult thing, because we have been formatted by our society, our parents for so many years, and it's difficult to get rid of it. So what we do is to create a process of getting rid of all belief, creating a new mindset, and ultimately practicing what you learn. If it is a soft skill, if it is about how you believe in yourself, on how you believe that you can bring something with purpose in your corporation. So that's in a nutshell of what we do. Now, coming back to the topic today. So interesting enough, beginning of the year in the UAE has been a dramatic change. And I got a lot of comments from human resources about it. So suddenly the government has decided to reduce the number of working hours in a week. A major change, in fact, that shows a little bit the type of leadership that the UAE wants to have, also the perception and this importance that they have given about the happiness and well-being of their population. So it's a dramatic change, but suddenly HR people find themselves discussing, so what should we do? Are we going to pay people less? How should we organize the work? Should we have more control? And then there is a bunch of legends, you know, the big legends that happens about, this type of cultures work better. In Japan, they wouldn't be able to do that. There is not so many organizations that are changing. So is there a proof really that we can work less and have as much or the same efficiency, productivity at work? Does it have any benefits for organizations? So all of this is kind of the topic that we want to discuss. And Angelique, we are going to benefit a lot on your experience working with so many human resources people, your experience in human resources, and the fact that your country was at the forefront of the change. So that's something that I'm looking forward to start in a discussion. So, but everything starts with the situation. What is really the current situation today? Is there anything that has changed during COVID or not? Let's be blunt about it.
So, I always like, when everybody was talking about it's been such a huge revolution because people are now working remotely. I'm just leaving the crisis part, and people were like having, home to homeschool children. Obviously, that was like a very intense period as well. But if we look at work itself, the major thing, I always say the major thing did not change, and that was our mindset. So we are programmed, as you said, formatted into a time and present mindset. time and present as in 8 hours a day, going to a certain place, and there is where you work. And people were starting, oh, now we all work remotely, and that's amazing, that's a revolution. And well, the real revolution would be if we were to change that we had a physical time and present mindset, we moved to a virtual time and present mindset. So fundamentally, we didn't really change the way we work, at least not in the way that I think would help us to create sustainable organizations for the future. So people are supposed to be working from 9 to 5 still, being there all the time online behind the computer available. And even the worst thing is that we even saw people ending up making more time and more hours, because that line that, where we had like that structure that was just become blurry, and that led to expansion of the work week for many people, and that in turn led to less efficiency and more burnouts and less well-being. So these are the we also see that especially in the beginning, not have a choice that to start for people and just say, okay, let's just make it work, and able to give you all you need. So positive side effect, to work remotely, is having a change their minds about what it means to be actually study. I spoke to a very, very senior person of a large company, and he said, well, every time we feel we miss some crucial information, this only meant that we already did not have the crucial information. We were already working without it. So this has also helped us to define what is important for us and what is not so important. A lot of learning, so people learn to organize their work differently, to become more effective. And the employees, and that's something I predicted from the beginning, I said employees will be starting to see the benefits of not being in office, not having to commute, and they will be shifting their priorities. And what we see happening now, companies changing to 4-hour workspace, compressed work days, more flexibility in place and time, is actually a direct consequence of that shifting of that experience, and therefore shifting of priorities. So employees are saying, okay, I don't want to go back to the office full time, because, I think it's really great that I can, go for a run in the morning in that 45 minutes that I would be commuting otherwise. So little examples that people are changing.
Yeah. So it is true that we as humans, we are resilient and we adapt to new situations, but the adaptation hasn't been without pain. There has been certain consequences. 41% of employees are considering leaving their current employer this year. And this is a research, in fact, Microsoft has done, because they are quite interested about this story about on the impact of remote places. And I guess it has to do with the type of software that they do. So 46% of these people who wants to leave their current employees say that they are likely to move because they can now work remotely, so they can choose. And that goes to something that is quite important for human beings. It's about having the control of your destiny, deciding how you want to manage your life, not being into the control mode where everything is systematic and pre-programmed, but at the end, it doesn't depend on you. The reality is that employees want the best of both worlds. So over 70% of workers want to have these flexible remote work options to continue, but there is still a 65% that are craving more in-person time with their teams. So there is a mix. It looks like a contradiction, but this contradiction, in fact, is not affecting everybody in the same way. So leaders are having a good time. They feel like they're thriving during this time of COVID, that everything is okay for them. But when you look at sub-segments, like people, Gen Z, the younger generation, these guys didn't have enough time for onboarding. There was no one to help them get into the real work. Then you have the working moms who have 2 or 3 jobs to do in parallel, who have been suffering the most. In fact, the number says that 60% of Gen Z are really in the survival mode, in the struggling mode. And for the mothers, working moms is 56% of them. So another thing is that new employees are not having a good time. 64% of them are in panic mode. So, and the sad thing is that at the end, companies want to be innovative, they want to attract right talent, and we know that there is a war of talent that is not easy because now there is more choice where I can work, from where I can work. So, and this Gen Z, in fact, it is they are at risk, and they will need to be somehow re-energized, repurposed. The world of work as it is today, without any change, is not made for them. And they are the ones who can tell you goodbye. And they are the innovators. They are the ones who take like solid decisions. I want to work from Thailand. I want to don't have an office. So they can take these radical decisions. And at the same time, the fact that they took this decision makes that they are innovators, that they can bring a hell of a lot of value for corporations, right?
Exactly. And this is so this was a development already, as I told you. So many people leaving their jobs because they wanted to travel, they have the flexibility. Many people who started their own business. There is I think in the US already almost 50%, there will be almost 50% freelancers. Why? Not people because it's probably their dream to become a freelancer, or to have that autonomy. So there's the need for autonomy, and I'll talk a little bit about how that is from the organization perspective in a bit. But as you say, individuals want to be in control of their own life. They want also to meet the needs of their family. They might have other interests, other projects. The going to a place for like spending their full days is a very male concept that is exclusive by nature. So the lifestyle business now that a lot of lifestyle coaches already, like business coaches, been doing flourishing for years, is like work where you want, when you want, and you know, have your own business that is also meaningful and making an impact. Autonomy and wanting to make an impact are two very, very important things, and we should remember that. So what happened now, because there was already like a percentage of people leaving corporates and becoming freelancers or starting a startup, or, because of that need. But now, because of the shift to a global labor market, it means that becomes accessible for a very large group of employees. And if 50%, almost 50% is already considering of leaving, that is like, there's no company who can survive if 50% of the employees will leave, even if it's spread in 3 years.
Yeah,
the companies are like, that's almost no company can survive that, because it's like the costs are immensely, and at the same time replacing people is going to take you months. So, and especially because they're going to get back. So we want to have a look at ourselves as an organization to change that. And this brings me to the good news. The exact needs of employees are actually what will drive your success as an innovative organization. Because in my studies, when I finished my thesis, my master thesis, and obviously I used like all the resources, I studied a lot of the materials. One of the most important things for knowledge workers is autonomy. The other one is having a clear mission, higher goal, because people want to be connected to something. They want to do something that is meaningful, that is giving them an impact, and that will give them that sense of engagement, that sense of togetherness, and that will stimulate their innovation. For innovation, we also need space. So everybody here, when do you get your best ideas? Just the question. What is your place for your ideas, Yvonne?
When I'm not working on the idea, when I'm walking around on the street discussing with my 11 years old child about things of life, whatever it's called, that's where ideas come.
Exactly. And a lot of people say in the shower. I had great ideas once when I was like vacuum cleaning the house, I was cleaning the house and, going for a run. It all has to do with, taking that and getting your subconscious doing the work. So, and we are trying to do, so the mindset that we have, 8 to 5, productivity hours, time and presence hours, command and control, that is all connected to physical, repetitive work where people were cut off of knowledge. It's a very different organizational concept that was valid and brought value in its time. But at this point, we have to move to a very different approach of work if we want to be effective. So giving our autonomy and a lot of space, so it's both in time and where you want, but also in like how to execute your work is very important. But also you don't want to create like a company where you don't know, nobody knows each other. So you also want to bring that people together and align them. And you do that with giving them a very clear organizational strategy and having a higher mission in place, a purpose. We are here together working on improving the world. And we do it by our product. This is, how we actually achieve that. So those are two things that are very, very important. They are important for your employees to thrive and therefore for your organization to thrive and get the best out of them.
Angelique, so 2 takeaways from what you just said. The first one is indeed, in order that people they are intrinsically motivated, that they have motivation from within, they needed 3 things. This story with purpose, something that is higher than just making money. Making money is not a purpose that human loves. Is beyond that, something good for the society, for the bigger group. In fact, that we are doing a beautiful thing for the people. Secondly, is having the possibility to have mastery, to become better at what they do. This is where the learning part makes sense. So instead of teaching them this is how you should be doing, find your way about how you should be doing the things, is help them with the mental process and the mindset that they can, because we have been formatted in the way that we cannot, right? That's parenthood. So we were saying purpose, we were talking about mastery, and the possibility to decide by ourselves what we want, choosing. And that's the 3 elements that can generate that people are going to be believing in, is wanting to stay in the workplace if they have this option. And if we think about ourselves, we also want that. But it seems that when we become leaders, we forget about that. We have a certain type of amnesia about what we wanted back in the days, right? The second point, and you mentioned, is like this belief that more hours is the best. So working more hours, and I read this interesting piece of research by a Stanford University professor, John Penkevel, that found that productivity per hour declines sharply when a person works more than 50 hours per week. So we're talking about not even the normal 40 hours, but there is a decline of productivity after 50 hours per week. So in fact, after 55 hours, productivity drops so much that putting in any more hours would be pointless. And for the people,
I would like to see that research. Sorry to interrupt. So I can elaborate a little bit on that, because even 8 hours a day is optimized for physical repetitive work.
Yeah.
They were like, this was like Taylor and it got all picked up at Henry Ford. So this is still the blueprint of how we work today, is an industrial concept. So at that time, they found out that 9 hours after 8 hours, productivity already declined in that line of work. Simple, repetitive, and you didn't even think about.
Okay.
And that people were not exposed to all kinds of information all day. and that people just went on a bicycle to work and come back. And they already, because this is why one of the reasons why we had an 8-hour workday at that time, also it got governments who formalized it and also saying there is going to be more well-being. Also, that was also a very good reason from a capitalist point of view, because if people work 8 hours a day and have a little bit more energy, they can actually spend the money that they make, just driving economy and bringing back money to organizations. So you don't want your workforce exhausted, also not from a capitalist economical growth point of view. So, and now we are making knowledge workers working at least 8 hours a day and still thinking that we can push that productivity. I can tell you that there is a lot of research that for knowledge workers and creative work, 4 to 6 hours a day is the optimized. And my personal experience, totally. Like I am like 4 hours, it's in my mornings, I'm at my best. I also think that if people will hire me, they should pay more for the hours that for the work that I do in the morning, because I'm giving them my best time. But after 4 to 6 hours, your mind, like we are exposed to so much information, and we work in a highly demanding working environment that we have to, use our brains, be innovative, be focused, bring ourselves into flow. And it's not possible to do that for more than 4 to 6 hours. This is why people in offices are, taking breaks, doing something else, because their mind just wanders and they're still forced to be in that building. So this is the only reason that we're not gonna go for that run. Like I'm literally after 4 hours, my body needs to move. I feel I'm getting restless. My mind starts to be distracted. I'm like, okay, I'm getting hungry, and I'm like, okay, it's time for break. And then maybe later in the day, I'll take another 2 hours to do something, answer emails, do something, or like focus on the presentation, just making sure that I get the most out of my day. But I know it doesn't make sense for me to push myself after that 6 hours. And on top of that, we have to understand that these are the conscious working hours. During that conscious time, we have to bring ourselves into a flow, stay focused. But we have all these innovative problems, like problems that need solutions, that needs ideas. And then we go cleaning the house, we go for a run, we go for a walk with your 11-year-old, we go do something very different. And then you get a solution for that problem. So maybe in that sense, we are still very productive and we are still working 24 hours a day, because our subconscious is working 24 hours a day. The output, the actual output, the time that you can work on deliverables, that you can be innovative, connecting with other people, is limited to be optimal. So there's other research to back that up. I don't say that the research that you have is not valid, but we just should have a good look at it.
Yeah.
And we will be talking about the 4-hour work week, 4-day work week. This is something that companies are experimenting with, and countries are doing pilots and research. And so what do you think about that, Ivan, from your point of view?
So there is two ways of reading. So I'm not on the approach of let's change it without validating. You know why? Because it's a little bit like what happened during COVID. So we can adapt to the situation, but we are not doing it in the optimal way because we haven't created the right processes in order to, for instance, work remotely. So a lot of people were feeling lost, maybe lost a little bit of motivation because of the sense of belonging being reduced, because they didn't have these habits that they had already developed in the physical office, and they had to do it at home. So it was a little bit a painful exercise for everybody, because they had to learn by being thrown in the swimming pool or in the sea, in the ocean, I would say. So I like the approach that certain countries have. You mentioned, for instance, the United Kingdom. Let's do a pilot and see what are the results. Iceland, they didn't say, let's do it for the whole nation. Let's do it with 1% of the working population. Several companies are doing mini pilots where you can measure, in fact, the impact and the processes, the tools that people need to have in order to be at their best in a big change. Any big change needs to be accompanied by a mental process and of adaptation, losing the fear, and in order to make it real, even the technology has to be adapted to in order to make it less painful for people. So going step by a certain amount of population, looking at your own results instead of believing whatever results are published by any people, and learning on the way what should be the optimized ways to deploy a big change. That's the way. Imagine, you mentioned just before about Henry Ford. So that was the time where they moved from 6 days per week to the 5 days per week. So imagine the big change that happened. So in fact, this has already happened, and we have survived, and people has worked less from. It's just that we forgot that it was back then in 1930s or something like that that this major change happened, and we have forgotten that it is already existing, and we have survived. People are not lazing around. We have become more productive in the sense that we generate more innovation, more added value with services, that we are not anymore in the factory just working with our hands. People, companies, countries have become wealthier because we have got the possibility for our brain to have a break, to reconstruct, to recharge, to create connections around the different areas of our brain, which creates innovation, and that brings value.
Exactly. Well, there was in that time there was also predicted that by today we would be working 3 hours a day.
Wow.
So we see the decline in hours, but then we also seen it going up, and we have a nice white paper that will explain it a little bit more. We'll put a link later. So we didn't go to 3 hours a day, but actually, if we look at the nature of our work and our society, we probably should have. So what are my thoughts about the 4-day work week, or that would be 4.5 for your region? Indeed, as you say, just compressing the work day, and it's the same as giving people flexibility. If you do not change the underlying beliefs and paradigms and the way your operating processes and policies, employee-employer relationships, you might get in problems. So enforcing this by governments, in a way it's good, in another way it is causing trouble. It is risky. It can become a risk for companies that would not be able to adapt, because they have, for example, a leadership team that is like really far of changing their paradigm and the way they work. So it would be good for everybody here in companies just also review, keeping in mind those developments and global labor market, war on talent, that governments that will, there is so much going on. So if you were to hire new leaders, really be really selective in who you hire, and make sure you hire people that can actually drive that change. And so also I see that 4-day work week, it's basically still a time and present mindset. It's still 8 hours that we just decided that's probably not optimal. And it's still not giving the autonomy that companies need, because you're still telling me when I need to do my work. So there is a few. I know there is gains. I've been working in the Netherlands. We had the right to work part-time many years. I was like, I went back to 32 hours, even like 15, almost 20 years ago. And it's nice to have that extra day. But it doesn't mean the other days shouldn't necessarily be 8 hours. And maybe for some people it really works better. So some people would say, okay, I love to, have that one full day on top of, I have a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday, and it's lovely because, I can disconnect, I can do all my errands. There's other people that say, well, I like to work in the morning and then have a really healthy lunch and have my afternoon to do my other things. Spreading those hours, even maybe onto 6 days, will give me an opportunity to, have my best daily routine and develop my more healthy habits and spend time with my family, because I don't want my family to wait for 4 days and then be available for them full time. So there is, and also if we look at that innovation that needs to be innovative, that is also something still you cannot catch in 4 days necessarily. So I do think there are developments. We are moving to less hours, compressed work weeks, compressed work days. It's quite interesting to see what routes we are going to be choosing. I do say that we should not forget all the data and the research that is out there that might indicate, that is indicating that a more full flex model where people can actually work when they want, rather than that being dictated in a certain structure, is going to lead to really human-centered and sustainable organizations that is also more inclusive, and will just help us in a global scale to be more innovative and development.
What I like is that you mentioned that the fact that that is not because there is the change or the decision to go into the one direction. We need to have to give people the flexibility to choose how to deploy the change or something that matches their individual needs, because this is what they're asking for. When I gave you the numbers before, it was like, it looks like a contradiction. Yes, I want to be with them, I want to be with my team, but I need to have the flexibility. There are a couple of things, in fact, that corporations that have been quite resilient through these changes have done, and it has to do a lot with the leaders that they have, and that's why also this big highlight that you made about that leaders should be ready makes a lot of sense. So organizations are resilient, they have managers capable of breaking down problems and distribute them. That was one of the biggest impact drivers. So if they are able to allocate the work to the remote teams correctly, each of the teams are clear about the near-term goals and objectives. That means that the continuous communication should be going. That they have personalized discussion, these coaching discussions, in order to enhance, motivate, and help them do their best and understand them at the personal level. That is something that had a big impact. Also, during these times, and especially during COVID, employee recognition from leadership has got a big impact. But here we are not talking about money. We are talking about the simple, thanks for doing this, or the ovation in front of other people, being recognized. Angelique, you have done an excellent job. Hey, the team, let's go around and let's have a drink with Angelique, or a virtual drink. So these small little actions do not cost a thing, but we need to understand that it is not about just creating the process to reduce and deciding how to do it. It is about making sure that the leaders are ready to manage. By the way, this is a story about leadership. So there was it was last year in the middle of the year that there was a KPMG study that was putting leadership readiness at the biggest threat. And leadership readiness was number 11 in terms of threat before COVID. So suddenly CEOs have recognized that leaders are not ready to manage empathically in a human way, distribute the stuff, distribute the task, have clear objectives during COVID. They were not simply ready. So there is a lot of lack in terms of how do we make sure that our leaders have the right skills, psychological resources, because it's tiring. It's tiring to have individual discussions with a lot of people, and the mindset where they start believing that their people can and that they can do it, right? Angelique, yes. I just wanted to spend some time. There is a little a question here. How about automating the repetitive task of employees to increase productivity and satisfaction?
Yeah, great idea. No, it's definitely something, and it's interesting. I've been speaking and mentoring a lot of startups as well in the last years, and the mindset that you find in startups is like, can we automate this? And, you know, I caught myself automating a process, or spent like a full afternoon automating a process that will probably happen once a month. And it's like not that repetitive. So it doesn't really make sense. But just, you know, I adapted that little mindset of, you know, this is something that could be automated. Doesn't mean you should. But yes, automation, repetitive tasks. So be very, very clear about what you're actually running. To get the most out of your employee, you do want to automate repetitive tasks. There is a lot of technology out there. In my experience, there's a lot of people, and I'm not talking about those very tech-savvy startup people. They'll be fine. They create their own solutions if they want to. But in an average organization, people have a lot of trouble in adapting into technology. You can usually see, you know, they will still have an Excel file, although they have a new HR system, and creating like a high workload and leading to burnout. And I've seen this not once, but I've seen it many times. We are not, when COVID hits, all the technology to work fully remote and fully distributed and fully asynchronous and automate a lot is already there, it exists. But there's like not so many companies that really optimize it. Because if you would that 4 to 6 hours that people would be working would not be, you know, that would also be spent on being innovative, creating happiness. If people can get a lot of those tasks from their plate, because they are eating energy, they are using focus, it's very difficult to become in flow if there's like repetitive tasks that are not stimulating your brain. So yes, for creating effective employees, and this is it's a little bit more on the operational side of things. Yes, see what you can outsource, see what you can automate, see what you can just stop doing. And this also goes, for example, a great example is also more practical level meetings. Be very, very aware of, you know, what is the objective of a meeting, who should be there, how often should this meeting happen, how long should it take. So there is a big opportunity to make a mind shift when you look at the repetitive task, to automate, really analyze your meetings and move to like, what are the objectives? So you are moving to a results-driven workday, and see what you can do more asynchronous. So instead of a one-on-one, you can also send a video with a presentation and say, hey, you know, this is my presentation, have a look at it later this week and come back to me. It's very, very much, it increases efficiency, and that will support that shorter work week or shorter work day, and give people more sense of you know, well-being, fulfillment, and just come to better results. Great question, by the way.
Angelique, I'm going to pick on a small portion of what you just said, and I'm going to expand on that.
Good.
The big challenge that we have today with technology is that we believe that in order to make people tech savvy, we need to throw a couple of software in the company, and that will solve problems. Now, the thing is that in order to digitalize a company, and if we do the parallel with a startup, we should be continuously reinventing. We need to be curious so that we choose the right solution that is not adding to the more pain for people. Like, what if I have a solution where I need every 10 minutes, I need to put some numbers? That would be completely stupid, but it happens in big corporations like the ones where I was working in the past. It happens that the system became a burden, and after a couple of years, after spending so much money, it was ditched. We just had to put it under the carpet, but everybody forgot that it was $1.5 million to develop this beautiful system. So what we are saying is that in order to digitalize and provide people the capacity to use more frequently their brain and to don't do this repetitive task and become like numb at work, and it's not challenging anymore. And if it is not challenging, we want just to die in front of the computer. We need to create a process of generating the curiosity for people to go and try stuff, go and pilot stuff. Now, most of the software that there is, you have trial period, you can play with it. Sometimes it costs you peanuts, rather than starting developing yourself or saying, oh, this is stuff from the IT department. IT department, it is not their job to try new stuff. If I am a marketeer, I need to know what is out there, what could what the benefits. So it cannot be like a human resources person teaching to the IT department, we need something to automate my, I don't know, the bonuses, the benefits, and without them understanding, being consumer-centric enough to understand the major pains of the users. So technology is the way to go, but we need to create people to think about technology, to continuously embrace it, to continuously try stuff, continuously do mini mistakes.
Exactly. And I have, so we have to realize that we encounter new solutions, and for new solutions, we encounter new challenges and we need new solutions. What we see happening, and it's very human, to say, okay, there's a new challenge, but I'm falling back on an old solution because like, I don't have an alternative.
I don't know better.
Exactly, and like with Harmonic Lab, we have so many connections also with great solutions out there. So we also collecting them so that at least our people know they exist. And it would be like, so because some people are like, oh, I was developing something like this myself, and just during the crisis, and it's like there's a great solution out there, and it's like it's a SaaS and it's like low cost, and you can just basically outsource your problem to the solution. But and saying that, I really want to make sure that leaders and people in organization understand, as you say, because this is super important, we cannot just buy a tool and implement it and say, send an email, we now have this tool, and now I did my job to solve this problem. No, because we need this whole, and I've worked with future of work related startups, helping them to improve their client success, because we've seen that happening with various like great solutions out there that were like, Angelique, I sell my solution, but the people's not start using it. How do you think that, why is that? And we're like, well, because, it was one email and everybody went back and, kept on doing what they were doing before. So we have to understand that it's all connected to culture, mindset. Yes, technology, both operational processes as technology are important, but they need to be supported by mindset change, a intention to drive work, to rethink work, an intention to always be able to challenge each other, and especially in leadership teams, but in a safe way. Do not judge somebody in your company saying, oh, that's a dinosaur, he doesn't trust his employees. No, it's not constructive. And we all have our old ways of thinking. And sometimes in one area, you might be very forward thinking, but you might just be very backward thinking in another area when it comes to work or like what it means. Those things are very connected to our values. I come from a part in the Netherlands where like working hard, getting up early, working really hard is imprinted in values for generations. And then, if there's a company and people are young and they work with their parents, and the parents like, it's 6 a.m, you have to get up because you have to get to work. How can you expect? And this person once maybe, thrives at starting at midday. But, we need, and this is something that could take a generation or even up to 2 generations to change. And all we need to do right now as leaders is enable the next generation, leaders in, that are often like 40, 45 or older. We need to create now the setting that the next generation can actually start making their changes, and that we are helping them to be reprogrammed. We need to reprogram ourselves. And it's all about that reflecting and coming back and challenging. Even like you said, there was research that people, they want to work remotely, but they want to connect in person with their team. And then with their team, I challenge that. Do they want to connect in person with their team, or do they want to connect in person with other human beings?
Yeah.
And that is a mindset change. And I'm sure all those employees say, I miss that daily day connection with my team, because that is what's been taken away. And they don't have an alternative in place yet. Oh, now I have lunch by myself every day. Well, you can invite the neighbor to have lunch with you, because that person is also working from home. So, you know, this is a mindset, and it's also nice to make it playful and safe and just say, is that really true?
Exactly. Angelique, if you don't mind, there is another question that I really like. It is related to the next generation, in fact. So is Afzal saying, great perspective, Angelique and Ivan, thank you. Request for your views. Will the physical workspace still exist in next 5 to 10 years?
I love that question, because, and it's exactly mainly because it is connected in the 5 to 10 years time frame, and that is so important. And like, that's what we do as well. We always say, what, understand first where you want to go in 5 to 10 years, and then you know what's, you know, what steps to take for the next few years. There will be physical workplaces, but they will have changed. So I can totally see larger companies, especially larger companies, having physical places where people can meet, where they facilitate the need for people to, you know, not work necessarily from their private space, where they have events, where they can allow people to come, especially larger companies probably want to do that by themselves. Smaller companies, I would recommend to look into co-working spaces, you know, to facilitate. It is good to have a go back. I know someone that did a PhD, your physical working environment, and I live in Brazil, so I can confirm it's true. It's very important on your productivity. So it is not necessarily the kitchen table from your house where, you know, you also eat and you have your children. Definitely not. Doesn't mean there is like the narrative of office and working from home. There is a lot of gray area. It will be changing. People will finding their own needs. We already seen, like I've lived in co-living spaces where people just, you know, work together, live together, where people can travel. I've seen a lot of people bringing that combination. You see a lot of people saying, I want to go to the office a few days, I'm working from home another few days. There will be physical places where people go, and they will be optimized for work, and people should have the flexibility to choose what is their most productive place and where they'll need to go.
Just on my perspective, if in 10 years we haven't reduced the physical space by, let's say, 50 to 60%, then it is a bad thing, because all of these Gen Z who are popping up in the workplace, they don't want the physical space. They want to have the choice. So they need to have the flexibility to come when it's required, needed, or wanted. So if in 5, 10 years, companies are still paying the same amount of rental charges, that means that they have done something wrong. Next question, quickly, we need to focus on providing microlearning rather than lengthy and costly training, which nobody remembers. Technology helps on this. So that's a good one.
I'll give that to you.
Of trainings and workshops, by the way, Angelique. So there is sometimes these brainstorming sessions of 2 days where people don't generate a single innovation. They are there together. They are discussing, fighting approaches for handling some challenges, but there is no real innovation, because the brain, and you said it several times, is not made to have focus for a long time, and then an environment of pressure where you have timing for the next step. It is not the best in order to generate creative ideas. That's why best ideas come on shower or walking or discussing with your 11-year-old child. So basically, the way learning is done today in most of the cases, it is wrong. And we know that because we have been spending lots and lots of money in trainings of 1 or 2 days, when do the people have the possibility, one, to digest the information, and secondly, to practice the change? You cannot have a 5 days training about managerial skills and expect that you have better managers, because nobody had the possibility to practice a single step. So what happens, and there is data on that, is that after 2 months, only 5% of the population who attended that training remembers something. Now let's look at e-learnings. LinkedIn put out there the certain numbers. Only 11% of the people who starts an e-learning finishes the e-learning. Why? Because we need, as human beings, to have a feedback loop to tell me if I'm thinking it right and if I'm doing it right. So there needs to be like a way to give me feedback on what I'm practicing. It is an amazing idea to have e-learnings, but e-learning alone or physical trainings alone are not the solution. There are, and Regit, you said it right, technology now allows to have something that is individualized, where you can practice, but it goes beyond just the simple 6 hours e-learning. It cannot be. People do not learn. Our brain is not made for that. So I think it is 7 o'clock, Angelique. Any last words that you want people to remember?
I think I said the most important things, but maybe we can summarize for everybody in an organization in a leadership position. That 5 to 10 year time frame is good. Think about, we need autonomy. We need to be innovative, connected with a higher goal. And we need to feel engaged, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in a traditional setting. So always be creative and challenge each other in your organization in a safe and playful way to bring change, get feedback from others. Very important. I find it very important people make the right decisions, since we are like now creating the foundation of how work will look in the future for next generations. So make sure you're well informed, use academic research, talk to the right people, get great input from your peers, and make sure you have an open mind when it comes to solutions and being creative. Listen to your people as well, what the people in your organization want. That's basically like the high over advice I want to leave people with.
Angelique, first of all, I wanted to thank you for your time and consideration. What you are doing helping organizations, it is amazing, because you get to see live the impact of what you propose, what you work together with the decision makers in order to change cultures. And this is something that has a lot of impact from the bottom line side and from the people side. So, and we mentioned something that is quite important. So we are continuously creating content. So Angelique has kind of like, if you register to hellomondayclub.com, you have a white paper who has additional insights on the topic. So that's something that people can benefit of. I also recommend to go to bessern.substack.com to register to our newsletter. Our stuff is about helping people to learn and create better cultures, to use behavioral science in order to nudge the brain to take action. That's the 2 cents that we wanted to share with you. Now, if you have questions, you want to get in touch, there is one, LinkedIn, so Angelique Slob or Ivan Palomino, or you can take a big picture out of our emails so that you can ask us any question, because it's always good to have some particular tangible stuff, not just the big ideas.
Exactly. Yes, if you send me an email, and also I think you will send it with a recording on my website, you can download. If you sign up, you get our white paper on work-life integration, which gives you some good insights and what I mentioned. Also mentioned my research, and we have a white paper available, and that is about about the most optimized working environment for knowledge workers. It's more academic. And yes, hello@hellomoneyclub.com. It's easy to remember. Just send me an email, reach out with any questions. If you are in an organization and you are involved in workplace transition, transformation, and you want to have a chat with me, just send me an email. I'm always open to talk to people and help.
Thank you, Angelique. Guys, thank you for making it and showing your interest in this amazing topic. Angelique, I have learned a bunch of stuff. Thank you very much.
Yvonne, thank you so much for the opportunity, and everybody here attending, and also the people watching the replay later. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm happy that we're all part of these exciting times, and we'll make it work.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.